Hello, friends. It's Scott and Deb. Welcome to Look to Him. We are so grateful you are here. This podcast has honestly come from so many prayers, conversations with friends, family, people we love, people who are struggling on, honestly, our own lives too. We kept coming back to this idea that so many people feel exhausted, disconnected, ashamed, happy in their church, struggling in their whatever. Whether they believe or don't believe, or they don't belong anymore. And we just wanted to create a space and a place where people could come exactly where they are.
This is awesome, right, Deb?
Oh, I love it.
We're so excited, gang, to be bringing this to you. A lot of thought and prayer and conversation and, again, consultation. Actually, honestly, with many of you to begin with all of this. Deb just hit the nail on the head. That's exactly what our intent is for this podcast. You know, the biggest problem that many of us have had is when we've felt a need or a desire or compelled or even just, a wish or a desire to connect to deity, we realize oftentimes, and we do this erroneously, Deb, but we sometimes think that in order for me to go to God, I got to get cleaned up first.
Funny how we think that
or
feel that.
I mean, I got to get cleaned up first. You know, I got to quit pretending. I got to quit performing. You know, but what we're going to do here, and this is our intent. Our intent. You hit the nail on the head. We're just real people trying to figure out how to look to Christ in real life.
Yeah.
And how to make it meaningful.
And maybe that's really what this first episode's all about, is just come as you are. We want to invite all. Whoever, just come and join us.
You know, I'm just going to get back to that. I think one of the biggest misunderstandings that we as people, it's just human. I know I felt this way so much, and I still sometimes do, that we as people carry this ridiculous idea that we need to become better before we can come to God. You know, like somehow the invitation is fix yourself first, then come to me.
But before you go there, Scott, what's the real reason I should come unto Christ? What's the real reason I should come to God?
Yeah, that's probably the biggest, most important question that one has to answer for themselves, especially as I'm beginning a relationship with Him. First off, why do I even want one, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Give me a reason if I turn on this podcast.
I guess I'm taking a lot for granted by just jumping into those kinds of things, like I was saying, but that's sometimes what we do, and I think that I'm not alone in taking those kinds of things for granted. I think that sometimes, especially if we've been raised in a religion, in a church, in a tradition, a faith tradition, or what have you, where, there are certain check marks or there are certain waypoints along the way, we kind of see our relationship with God in that kind of a situation. But you want to know the truth? The relationship I have with God spawned from something totally different.
Isn't that interesting? Yeah. I found God in some of my hardest struggles and challenges. It was definitely not I could do church and I could do it good and I could check it off and I could do that pretty perfect. However, I didn't really understand that I needed a relationship with God or even Jesus Christ. I had no idea.
Yeah, but why? So I'm going to throw the question back at you. Why do you need the relationship that you have with God or with Jesus Christ?
I can tell you in my life when I had hard things that were painful, that were uncomfortable, that was shaming, I realized that there was not anyone in the church or in my family that could fix the pain that I was going through or that even could offer me relief. And I think that's where I'm grateful for that church and that religion that taught me to go to God, because that's exactly what I did. I knew that my problems or my challenges were bigger than me. And so I literally fell on my knees and I was like, someone bigger than me has got to help me know the answers. I shared this in a previous podcast, but when I was 17 years old, I was pregnant, a senior in high school. And I felt like the entire world had crumbled in on me. I felt like I fell in a pit. probably 20 feet deep without a ladder. And I had created a lot of pain for my family, a lot of pain for myself, a lot of pain for others. And I knew in that pit that I could not rely on anyone on this planet but God. I knew that he had an answer for me. And when I literally fell on my knees and said, God, why or how or what? You do have choices in that situation. And I knew, I wasn't old enough to raise a baby. I knew I was not old enough to I was way too young. And so I really had to seek God. And I think that's where...
That's a pretty big why.
Yeah.
That's a really big why.
Yeah. And I learned it at a very young age.
Yeah. It's kind of the same for me, babe. I was raised also in a church. I was raised LDS, and I still practice. I'm still very active in it, etc. For some reason, Deb, I just always thought I was making Heavenly Father mad at me.
Yeah.
And so I kind of created, just inadvertently even, just kind of almost unknowingly created this distance in any kind of relationship. Because to me, God was a cop. We just went to Mark. That's not meant to be derogatory towards you. We have a listener, a good friend in Lethbridge, Alberta, Canada, whose name's Mark, who's a police officer, and he's a most wonderful guy.
He is wonderful.
We just went
delightful.
to dinner with him again. Just went to dinner with him the other night, and again, just extend the invitation to all of you. If you're ever in the area of Orem, Utah, please reach out to us because we'd love to do the same with you. But as I'm thinking of this, Deb, part of my story, and our listeners who are joining us from the old podcast already know this. I'm a recovering alcoholic. I have 27 years. Currently, I have 27 years of continuous sobriety. On October 26th of this year, 2026, I will have 28 years of continuous sobriety. I'm highly active, still active in Alcoholics Anonymous, in AA, and I go to meetings on a weekly basis. I sponsor several people. But let me just tell you something. There was a time in my life after I had served a mission for my church, after I had done all the things, there was a time in my life when I found that I couldn't deal with the things that were scary for me. And we'll probably get into some of that as we go. But I learned to numb through drugs and alcohol. And I did that even after a mission. I came home, and even after I had served a mission. And when you're involved in things like that, and you become an alcoholic, or you have alcoholic tendencies, and I'm an alcoholic, and there is a difference between becoming addicted and becoming alcoholic. There's a big difference. I'm an alcoholic, and I will be my entire life, and it requires treatment, constant treatment. What I didn't realize on October 25th, 1998. Actually, it was not October 24th, 1998, when all hell broke loose for me. What I didn't realize was God was working in my life. I had distanced myself from God, but what I didn't realize is God was working in my life, and he was actually providing for me a gift. I call it the gift of desperation. Mm-hmm. I was desperate. There was no place else for me to go. I couldn't fix myself. I had tried. Nobody else could fix me. I wouldn't allow him to anyway, but I couldn't do that on my own. I finally had to get to a spot, and we learned this, the first step of Alcoholics Anonymous is I can't. I'm powerless over alcohol. My life is totally unmanageable. The very second step recognizes the importance of deity in my life. I came to believe that a power greater than myself could restore me to sanity. I don't understand. It seems presumptuous to me to use the wording restore us to sanity. That's to presume that we were sane in the beginning, and I don't think that was necessarily the truth with me. Nonetheless, step 2 is the impetus and the crux and the center, the hub of everything that we do to offset those things that make me desperate. I had to find that. So for me, that's why that's so important.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think for me, feeling like I was in that pit, I knew as a young child, because I was taught by my parents that there is a God that loves me perfectly.
Yeah.
And so when I was in that pure place of desperation that I've disappointed my parents, I've disappointed my siblings, my friends, everyone around me, there was no one else for me to turn to but him. And for some reason, I knew in my heart he was there. And I felt him, especially when I knelt and I was like, I'm so sorry. because I have disappointed my family. I have disappointed me. I have disappointed, so many people. And there was so much shame attached to that it was like only only he can heal me, or even give me relief from the desperation that I felt as well.
Yeah, exactly. Same for me. I remember, but it didn't come overnight for me, though.
No.
It wasn't, I didn't throw myself on the floor and have this crying out experience, and all of a sudden I felt Jesus working in my life.
No, we were messes. And I think this is why we have so much passion for this podcast now, is we understand messy.
Yeah, that's
we
true.
understand messy lives. We're a blended family going on 24 years. We know mess.
Yeah.
And we have hope in our mess. And we still have mess. We don't have it figured out.
But I think back, and this is where our listeners, potentially, some of our listeners are, they wouldn't be listening. And this is where I still sometimes go, or I wouldn't be human.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, for sure.
Is that, there are just times when I feel distant.
Yeah.
I feel distant. I don't feel any kind of protection, or I don't feel as much care, or I hate to use be as extreme as say any kind of, because maybe there's some there. The point is there's distance. And sometimes when I feel that distance and that disconnect, it's difficult for me again. And you talked about feeling shame. It's difficult for me again not to identify with my shame.
Well, we have a tendency to put shame as our identity. We forget who we are and whose we are, meaning we're Heavenly Fathers. We are God's. We belonged, and Jesus purchased me. Like Jesus literally purchased me. Do you think he purchased shame? Absolutely not. That's not who I am. I am a daughter of deity.
Yeah.
And I forget that I'm not my story. I have a story. I have a lot of experience in my life, but that doesn't define who I am. It took me decades to figure that out, by the way, because it's hard not identifying to your story. I am this. I was this. I am this. Whatever. But it's easy to when you're in that mess to identify as I'm just a disappointment. It's so true.
I think a lot of people will definitely relate to that, sweetheart. Because eventually you just kind of hit a wall. You realize I can't fix myself. I can't fix myself, especially if I'm mad at myself or by hating myself. And that's when we see ourselves through the lens of shame. That's really what we're doing.
Well, shame says I'm bad.
Exactly.
Where guilt says I did something bad. Because it's not my identity.
Guilt can guide us.
Yes.
Shame will bury us.
Shame should be flushed down the toilet.
Yeah, but it's a big tool of the enemy.
Oh, of course.
Maybe one of the biggest tools.
Oh, of course. There's so many shame-based. I hear so many people share their stories with me, and I ams. When they tell me that they are I'm a drug addict, I'm a thief, I stole, I cheated, and I'm like, no, you're not. That's things that you have done. That is not your identity. That's not who you are.
Yeah. We talk about all this stuff, and I know for me personally, there were seasons when I actually thought trying harder was the answer, and that's a big one for me too.
Or being better.
We talk about shame, but it's just try harder. Alanis Morissette, do you know who that is?
Oh, I sure do.
Do you know the song that she wrote?
Yeah, I sure do.
Yeah, there was a time in my life when there was just so much depression, and I was facing so much suicidal ideology. You remember that time?
Yeah, I do remember.
You came home, and I was curled up on the floor in the garage with and that was a very ugly time in my life, but I'll never forget, one of the things that was going through my head was that Alanis Morissette song, be a good boy, try a little harder, don't forget to take first place. I wish I had the time, I'd pull up the lyrics, because that was for me the shame song that rang in my head constantly, and it wasn't really that song, but it was the ideal or the ideology behind that song was that you're just never going to be enough. Quit crying. Toughen up. You should be smarter than that. And this isn't anybody's fault. If anybody's listening, namely my parents, if anybody's listening and feeling any kind of guilt twinge because of this, it has nothing to do with you. This is about whatever my life experience was supposed to be at that time, and that's what it was. I just didn't feel like I could cut it. And so when I didn't feel like I could cut it, I was just felt distant. I felt like there was no way. And so I felt like I just needed to work a little harder. I felt like try a little harder, be a good boy, try a little harder. You just need more discipline. You just need more effort. You just need to respond different to the guilt that surely is coming your way in truckloads at a time, right?
Isn't it funny, the things that we believe?
Yeah, exactly. And honestly, Deb, the harder I tried frequently, the more exhausted or the more discouraged I became. And at some point, it was just like, screw this, I'm done.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of people can relate to that.
Yeah.
I mean, we have this mindset, but I think it's more important for us to remember that, because eventually, well, you hit a wall where you realize I can't fix myself by hating myself. That's not going to get me anywhere.
Yeah.
I think along the way, we start realizing that and remember that Christ wasn't asking me to impress him. He's not up there saying, do a good thing so that I can be proud of you. That's not how his ministry is or was. Come to me.
Yeah.
Come follow me.
Part of that come follow me is sometimes doing good things, but not for the sake of doing good things.
Correct.
Right? Because again, as we draw closer to him, there just becomes a desire. This has been, again, my experience. So when I say we, I mean me. There's been a desire for me to become more like him. I have taken on a kind of a personal challenge. I was going to say over the last little while, this personal challenge has been alive in my life for the last 42 years.
That's a few decades,
buddy. I know, right? Is it more important to know him, love him, or be like him? And the scripture from the Bible to support, this is life eternal, to know thee, the only true God, in Jesus Christ, whom thou hast sent, right? And the first great commandment is to love the Lord thy God, right? Mm-hmm. And then the other one is Matthew 5:48, where it says, be ye therefore perfect. And we know that the word perfect is actually complete. A transliteration or a translation, and it can also be used, another word that can be plugged into its place is complete. So love him, be like him, and love him, be like him, and know him. This is life eternal, to know him. So, for the last 40 years, even Deb, when I was dealing with alcoholism and drug addiction, I knew that somewhere out there he was there, and I knew that these three things would always be important for me. What I have found is those three things have saved my life. Not just my physical life.
Sure.
They did save my physical life, but also my spiritual life. And so, what I want to hopefully do by way of this podcast and by way of the life I live and by way of my association in the church that I go to and by way of association in my recovery groups, I just want people to feel hope in him.
Absolutely.
I just want people to say, when life sucks, when life's desperate, when I am throwing up in a metal toilet because I'm in a jail cell and everybody can see me, when I am suffering because I don't know where my next paycheck or my next money's going to come from to feed my babies, and on and on.
For sure.
I know that those and millions of iterations of those things and other things are the very things that all of us are dealing with. But not just that. Not just that. It's not just those of us who are feeling desperate. It's even those of us who are peered like we're not. It's even those who are going to church and sitting right there on the front row. And as we're sitting right there on the front row, we have our squeaky little clean. And I'm not making a judgment or comment on anybody who sits on the front row or anybody. I love this. But if this is not motivated by me knowing him, loving him, or trying to be like him, then what's the point? It's different. It's for show, and it's a facade. And that's the very thing that ticked him off. That's the only thing that made Jesus mad, was hypocrisy. But when I go there, and if I can go there, and if I can feel him, and if I can feel his presence at work in my life, then all things in my life that are terrible get nailed to the cross.
Yeah.
Everything that's in my life that's terrible gets nailed to the cross. When I'm feeling the Spirit of the Holy Ghost in my life, then I know those things are nailed to the cross for me then too.
For sure.
So, just some hope. That's all we're hoping to instill here. So, Deb, What is come as you are? You know, I just talked a whole lot about me being as I am, and there's a whole bunch more rawness of that.
I think we both have plenty of rawness.
That Scott Durfee, come as you are. But what does come as you are mean to you? Maybe, if not personally, maybe generally, or maybe kind of both, or whatever.
You know, I think this is the heart of our this podcast.
It is.
Looking to him, it means come as you are. Yeah. We honestly, I have been in all aspects of sitting on that front row looking perfect. I have had the aspect of being the sinner and feeling so much shame that if I walk in a church, it's going to burn down. I have been that judgmental person that is judging you because you do things differently or smell or look differently. I have been that person that smelled and looked differently. I have been it all. And I think the thing that I think my passion piece of this is come as you are to me means you are his. He purchased me and he purchased you. All of you. He knows your name. He knows my name. He knows our pains and sorrows and sufferings and afflictions. And because of those years and decades of pain and sorrow and suffering that I felt, and I know without a shadow of a doubt, he knows me. And he loves me. And if I could just take that piece and present it to all of my friends who has pushed play on this podcast, I pray that you feel him, that when you look to him, you hear him, you see him, you love him, you want to be like him, that you know that he has drip drops of blood for all those sorrows, pains, and afflictions. Even that facade of perfection when I was sitting in those pews, having that shame and guilt because I wanted it to look a certain way, but I had so much grief in my heart. I don't want anyone to feel that. So my heartbeat to this look to him is all about welcoming all of my friends and all of his friends to him. Look to him.
Look to him.
Yeah.
And come as you are.
It's where you find him.
Finding Christ. Look to him. Finding Christ. Come as you are. The title of our podcast, and very intentional. Wherever you are right now, where literally ever you are right now, physically, emotionally, whatever, wherever you are right now, if you're in the chains of hell, if you're in the bondage of self, if you're literally in institutions or jails or prisons, and we know that you're there, we love you. More importantly than that, he loves you. And I know, guys, I know some of you are like, no, he doesn't. I know some of you are like, really? Then why is this happening to me? I get it. I get all of that. Believe me, I've been there. I've been most of the places where you currently are. I've been every place where you have been emotionally, for sure. And I'm telling you, he knows you. He loves you. He wants you to have joy and happiness, but sometimes growth is painful. And sometimes that growth that's painful has to be allowed. And even then, he'll step in if I just ask, or if I align with his will for me. So much that we talk about in Alcoholics Anonymous and other recovery programs talk about this, Deb. If I can just align my will with him, maybe I can match calamity with serenity. When
the Savior walked this earth, he went to the people that were sick, the blind, the sinners. And I often plead, Jesus, when you come again, come to me. That's where he will find us, is in our mess. Yeah. He will find us in those places that we think he would be too ashamed of. I think he likes to get his hands dirty. I think he likes to lift where there is so much heaviness and so much sorrow. And even so much pride and joy, because I've had to be lifted out of that as well. Not necessarily joy, but definitely pride. You know what I mean? It's like, don't get too arrogant on this, because let's dial it in a little bit.
The invitation's always been simple. Come as you are. It literally has always been come as you are. Jesus didn't tell the people, go clean up before you come talk to me. He didn't say, you got to go make sure that you're worthy before you get your vision back.
Well, and the other tender thing is sometimes he washed them in more ways than one.
His desire is to wash all of us metaphorically in those same ways.
Yes.
All of us
Grace and mercy.
in those same ways. So the invitation's pretty simple. Come as you are. It's just simply come as you are. Not because God's disappointed in you, though, So the invitation is pretty simple. It's just pretty much just come as you are. You don't have to fix everything. God's not disappointed in you. He just loves us all so much that he wants us to have at least peace. If we're going to have trials, and we will sometimes, but if we're going to have trials, we're going to have those kinds of things. He wants to bless us with peace. Healing begins the moment that we stop hiding, that we recognize and realize that he's aware already, that he's willing and wanting. So wherever this finds you today, if you feel tired, if you feel lost, if you feel numb, if you feel ashamed, you know what? Even if you feel hopeful or searching, or maybe all of those all at once, and maybe things that I haven't even had the ability to articulate, wherever you find this today, just take one step towards him. Whatever that looks like for you, we are not going to be prescriptive about that. You ask him what that step could look like. And maybe just your asking him could be that step.
Yeah.
It could be that step. Thanks, everybody, for being with us. We hope this has been helpful. We hope this has been uplifting. We hope that you find hope. And above all things, we hope that you just come to know you as you come to know him, because you're worth coming to know. You're worth coming to know. So we look forward to being with you again next week. Thanks for being with us today.
And until next time, keep looking to him.
Look to him. We love you.